Hey, what's up, YouTube? Back again with another update. So this week, as promised, I said I'd do kind of a recap on my first week with the funded account. This week was actually a pretty challenging week for trading my pairs, and so I'm actually down a little bit in the account. Not stressed. If you saw my first video, I was down on that as well, but turned it around. It's just kind of the nature of trading. So this week's video, I'm gonna highlight two of my trades from the week, one win and one loss, and I'll walk through some of my context and my thinking around it, and hopefully that'll help you in your trading as well. So stay tuned. Here we go, guys. I have AUD pulled up. This is one of the pairs that I tend to trade pretty often, and so what I want to do is walk through some of my thought process for the week briefly, and at least looking back at it, and then also the particular trade. And so in general, last week, which was my first week with the funded account, overall was a tough week. I'm down a little bit in my account. I'm not super stressed about it because I was down in the challenge as well. If you'll see if you remember from my first video, and so I'm going to stick to my plan. But for my pairs that I trade, it was a challenge this week because the market wasn't conducive to my particular trading style. And so you remember on the lessons that I mentioned, if your trading setup or if the market is not conducive for your setup during the challenge, it may be good to wait. And so even though I have my funded account, after some consecutive losses this week, I stopped trading after Wednesday because I determined that the market wasn't moving in a way that was going to allow my strategy to be successful. So this first trade that we're going to walk through is a loss that I took on AUD, and I'll be able to exemplify some of what I mean by the market not being conducive for my trading style. So first, I want to draw my support and resistance levels, and so this is, let's make that a daily. I'm on the daily time frame for now, and then we'll jump down to the 4-hour and to the 15-minute. So you can see already price is in a pretty tight range, but let's focus specifically on this week. So the Monday was the 22nd, and so we just want to highlight this week. And so there, if we just look at where price is in that box, you can see price is pretty much ranging. There is no extended move up or extended move down, and so that makes my strategy difficult to find success. And so you remember the things that I use to win in the markets are breakouts and pullbacks. So breakouts tend to be the start of an extended move up or down, and a pullback will occur within that extended move. So if we're going up and we're going to retest the low before continuing higher, that's a pullback in which I participate in. Or if we're moving down and we're going to retest the high before continuing lower, I'd get in on a pullback. In this case, for AUD, as well as we'll see in a minute for GJ, that was not the case. And so my trading strategy suffered some losses this week. It's part of the game. I'm not super stressed about it, but I just want to highlight the context for those of you who may be suffering in the challenge or in trading it overall. Understand how your strategy fits within the current context of the market. So let's just drop down into the 4-hour, and you'll see a little bit more how challenging it is. And so look at price. It's just up, down. It's ranging. No strong moves in any direction, and so that's tough again for me to win. If we measure this range, it's actually like 180 pips, which is a decent range. And so for those that specialize in trading within ranges, they probably were fine this week. Again, my trading strategy is difficult for me to win in ranging markets, and so this to me looks like a lot of congestion, a lot of wicks, and so all this stuff cause trouble for finding good trades and good setups, and that proves to be the case, particularly for this trade. So if we go down to the 15-minute, I'm going to erase this I'm going to erase this consolidation box that I have pulled up, and then we'll go find the trade. I think I had it marked up. It was on the 24th, I believe. Yep, here we go. It's in here. And so let me draw some lines just so we can orient myself, and I can show you my thought process going into that trade. I'm gonna make this is a minor support and resistance. So you'll note I color code my support and resistance lines based on the time frame. So sometimes when I draw multiple support and resistance lines on a chart, I know which ones are the other important ones that I need to pay attention to. But nevertheless, so we're back on this trade, and the entry that I took was right here. It's on this candle right here. And so we'll come back to that in a second. And so coming out of the Asian session, which is this black area, you can see price didn't do anything exciting, not much. I wasn't trading in this session, but you look at it to give you some context. But coming into the London session, the London Open, we had a decent move down, and then we moved into this consolidation period. Not only did we have a decent move down, but price broke below the my 50 simple movement average. And so both of those give me some additional confidence that price is bearish and that I expect price to move down. And so coming into the New York Open, my bias was heavily bearish. I expected price to break out of this consolidation and continue moving lower. In addition to that, if you scroll back like a day or two earlier, where it is, here it is, we had this big move here, and I believe this was some news or something. I forget what crazy thing happened. I think Trump had tweeted about the China deal or something, and this was because I saw this on GJ as well. But nevertheless, I expected price to retest this low, and so that additionally gave me some confidence. One, where I thought price would move, but again, that price was going to be bearish and was going to come down to test that level. So if we look at the highlighted circle is where I took my entry. I'm going to delete this for a second so we can see it. And so we'd been in consolidation. Price had been slowly moving down to resistance, right? And so remember, I tend to trade the opens or around the opens because I expect volume to come and help moves, get along the way, help moves continue in the direction that they're going to go. And so I'm going to mark up my my entry here. Again, we had this push down, and so I wanted to see a break of this low, and so I entered there. I had my stop just above this candle, and I expected, at least, I was going to hold on for like a 1-to-1 at least here before I moved a little bit further. And so as you can see, price did as I expected. It broke the low, but then it retraced and ended up closing as a doji. And so you look at the next candle, it was a bullish candle, moved up, didn't hit my stop. The next candle was a bearish candle. So again, this range making it tough for my type of trades. And then the next candle was a strong bullish candle moving up, which ultimately hit my stop loss and stopped me out. But nevertheless, price never broke above consolidation or above the 50 moving average, so I was still confident that price was going to go down, and so I wanted to give this trade another chance, so I waited. And so I waited until I saw what I thought would be a good setup for me to re-entry, and that was this candle right here, this big bearish candle right here. We got a close below consolidation. I said, great, this is my entry. I'm going to enter as price breaks the low of this big candle, and so that's what I did. And so this bullish candle opened and price moved and broke the low, which I like to see before entering, so I took that entry. And again, because this was a big strong move with momentum and we broke the low, I placed a very tight stop loss above this candle. And so price broke below as I expected, but then retraced and hit my stop loss. And so those were my two attempts to get into the trade. But as you can see, price did ultimately move in my direction. And so post-mortem analysis, what could I have done to succeed or do better on those trades? One, understand that we were in consolidation and maybe it wasn't a good time for me to trade. That's the first. Two, if I am going to trade, I need to put my trades in a position to be more successful around consolidation. And so specifically what that means is, so on my first entry, though my bias and my assumption was right, where I placed my stop loss was wrong. And so I have a preference to try to get tight stop losses, so I placed my stop loss here above the 15-minute candle. But coming out of consolidation, I should have had my stop loss, or I could have placed my stop loss above the congestion, right? That way, even though price ended up closing as a doji, I could have ridden the wave through all this ranging mess and ultimately caught the move down that I expected and anticipated. Very similarly, on this candle of which I entered, after this big bullish move, again, because my preference is tight stop losses and I expected momentum to continue, I had a stop loss above this current candle. And so had I placed my stop, instead of being above the current candle, at a minimum above the big momentum candle, or as I mentioned previously, above consolidation, again, I wouldn't have been stopped out. I would have been able to take this drawdown, but ultimately participate in the move down. And so the lesson for me, and that I'll share for you all, is coming out of consolidation, be mindful of where you place your stops. I think it's great to try to get tight stops, and I will always preference that. But looking back, had I moved or adjusted my stop loss a little bit higher, and then compensated for maybe lowering my lot size to compensate for a bigger stop loss, I could have participated in this trade and caught the move that ultimately happened, that I ultimately picked correct. And so this was a loss. I tried to enter it twice. So next we're gonna go talk about actually a win that I got on GJ. I'm gonna try to move through this one a little bit quicker because a lot of the context we've already talked about, but it's very similar. Again, this week was tough for my strategy. If we look at GJ, again, you're going to see a very similar kind of context that we just showed on AUD. Where's the so this is the 22nd again, and so very similar to what we just saw on AUD. For GJ this week, it was pretty much moving in a tight range. And so again, for my setup, not the best. We'll just pop down to the 4 hour. Again, you can see pretty much ranging, no big exciting moves whatsoever. Now let's jump into the 15. Well, before that, let me just delete this, and we'll go into the 15-minute into the trade that I did take, because despite that, I was able to get a win. But it was one of the few wins that I got this week. I think I have it highlighted somewhere. Let's see, it was on the 23rd. There we go. The 23rd. So it's this entry right here that you see highlighted. I'm going to delete the circle now that we found it. Draw in my minor resistance so you know what I was thinking about. Alright. Alright, so for this trade, let's walk back to the Asian session. So on AUD, I guess this was the following day, but for GJ, I had taken it the day after. So remember, this was that big move, that big news blip from the tweet or whatever happened. So similarly, I had an expectation that price may want to retest this level. The rest of Asia was pretty quiet. London, we had a small move up, but then ultimately a move down. You see this blue line, which is a daily support and resistance level. So to me, this is an important one to pay attention to. It held. We didn't stay above it. We ultimately came down. And so this move here was two things happened which gave me confidence that I want to take this entry. One, we had this move down below the daily support and resistance. Price broke below the 50 moving average, and then on this retest, I expected this level to hold. And so once I got this bearish candle here at this resistance, and again a close below the 50 simple moving average, to me that was the signal, or the data that I needed to say, all right, this is a setup that looks good for you, right? And again, I was eyeing this level. This is that level where we had that crazy news, so I expected price to want to come down here and retrace. And so what did I do? As you know, I like to enter on the breaks of the lows, and so I took my entry right there. I put my stop just above those two candles, and I held on. This one was like a 1.5, and so I entered on this candle. Yeah, this candle. I entered on this candle as we broke the low, and so this is how I, it tends how I like to see these things happen. Again, remember, I like to trade around the opens. This is as you can see, this is just after the New York Open. We have our railroad tracks here. If you're not familiar with railroad tracks, it's a reversal sign. It's when you have pretty much two evenly sized bars, but of different directions, print right next to each other. So this also was an additional kind of confluence. But again, price, I wanted to see price break the low of that candle. It did. I put my stop above the previous candle. So exact same setup to what I just talked about in AUD. AUD, it didn't work out. Here, it did. And so this is where doing your trading plan, understanding probabilities. For me, I've seen it work out more times than it's not. So I'm okay taking these trades when I see them. I took it, price with the volume of the open, continued moving down in that direction, ultimately moved and retested that low as I expected. And so that's the DJ trade. Unfortunately, I was not able to get a few more of these this week. If I just close it out, you can see DJ was pretty nasty and unexciting the rest of the week. And so, as I mentioned, I took some losses this week, and so I decided to pause trading and wait until better setups or the market is better structured for how I trade. And so that was the DJ setup. I hope the thought process was useful. I hope the AUD setup was useful. So now let's just wrap up and talk about some closing. Right, so hopefully you got some value from that. I think, understanding the market structure and how it, impacts your pairs and additionally your trading strategy is extremely important to being successful and being consistent in this, in this trading game. So I hope you took some nuggets from that. That'll improve your trading. I'll be back at it again with my funded account this week and looking forward to, making some profits. So good luck to everyone, and I'll see you soon.